And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Johnson, and also being joined today by our special guest host, Sean Mulligan, as the Super Bowl has commenced as of this past Sunday, and the worst year of my sports calendar lifetime has continued as the Philadelphia Eagles cemented their second Super Bowl reign this past Sunday, and a dominating fashion, beating the Kansas City Chiefs by the final of 40-22. A game that I know you, Johnson, were particularly happy about, considering you didn't want to see the Chiefs get the three-peat. A game that I said 2 weeks ago, I was hoping that the Eagles would not win. I picked them to win. I was hoping that maybe the mush would happen, and it did not happen. It did not happen for me the entire postseason for the most part. So I'm very was wondering where this was the entire regular season, but I guess it's better late than never to have some right picks to end the year. But nonetheless, the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts wins Super Bowl MVP. The three-peat does not happen, so it's still we're still waiting to see if that will ever happen in NFL history. And now we go into a very long offseason for the remaining 30 teams that did not make it in this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, Nick, I'm going to say to call it the worst professional sports year of your life is that is an exaggeration and a half. I don't think anything will ever reverse 2004 for you.
That never happened.
Exactly.
Well, but in fairness, to that, that was only one particular thing that happened that year. In the last, let me trace this back to even the summer of 2024. You started off with the Knicks. You could even retrace it back to last March of 2024. St. John's gets, absolutely screwed, does not make the NCAA tournament. The summer comes around, the Knicks get injured, they lose to the Indiana Pacers, the Celtics win the championship, the Rangers get eliminated from the playoffs. Let's see, then we go into October, November, I see the Yankees lose to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. I then have to watch the Giants from opening week, which we all know how that went. I watched an Ohio State National Championship, a Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl. Did I forget to mention that they signed our best player as well, it's Saquon Barkley. That's like 9 things I've already listed off in the past year, pretty much, that has happened. So I would venture to say this has probably been my worst sports year of my entire life. Having to watch all of that happen in a 11, 12-month span. Yeah, I think that overexceeds what happened that 1 year, just being that one lone thing, albeit it was history, but still, this has been pretty bad for me. And I forgot Juan Soto left the Yankees, too, to go to the Mets. So
I was about to remind you of that, because that is the only thing in my sports year that I have had to hang my hat on.
Yeah, this has been bad. This has been really, really bad, really bad. But enough about me. I guess let's talk about the game alone. And let's just face facts. It was a very uneventful game. Obviously, if you were from the city of Philadelphia, which, we have been very vocal about how we feel about the city of Philadelphia. But nonetheless, you were very happy about how this game went. A 34-0 lead at one point for the Eagles in this game. They went into halftime up 24-0. And the biggest difference from last year's Eagles team to this year's Eagles team was their defense. I mean, last year's team, they had Matt Patricia at one point being the defensive coordinator. That obviously did not turn out well. They got bounced from the wild card round by the Buccaneers. And then they hired Vic Fangio this past offseason. And Fangio did a phenomenal job with this defense. Drafted Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeGee in the first 2 rounds of the draft. He really elevated Jalen Carter's status as well, being the former first-round pick from a few years ago. And, remember, he was supposed to be the number 1 pick in that draft, albeit what happened off the field. He showed this season why he was a projected number 1 overall pick this year. Their defense, just for the most part, they signed guys like Zach Bond from the Saints, who was a 1-year rental deal, and they turned him into a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And they were the story of this game for the most part for the Eagles. They really did not have to do much offensively for the most part to get to Patrick Mahomes and company. Mahomes got sacked 6 times. They didn't even blitz the Chiefs once in this game. Most of Mahomes' dropbacks were just under regular duress, and the Eagles were getting to him pretty much every single time possible. They could have run the football because of the big deficit they had already trailed in. Mahomes threw that pick six before the first half ended as well to Cooper DeJean. And the Eagles, took advantage of the short field that they would have for the most part. The Chiefs didn't have an offensive play in Eagles territory, I don't think, till the third quarter of this game. So that just showed you how dominant the Eagles were in this one. You saw a game in which also where the Eagles didn't even have to have Saquon Barkley. He didn't have his best game at all. 57 yards on 25 carries, but it was Jalen Hurts on the offensive side that was the difference maker for the Eagles. A tush-push touchdown to give them the first touchdown of the game. He had a couple of nice throws to A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith for receiving touchdowns. And like I mentioned, the Eagles just dominated this game from start to finish. Probably one of the more dominating start to finish Super Bowls we've seen maybe since that Broncos Seahawks game back, I think maybe a little bit under a decade ago. I don't remember the exact year it was, the one that was playing MetLife Stadium. But yeah, this was just, a dominating performance for Philadelphia, and they deserve to win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, they deserve to win this game, and they get their second ring.
Well, firstly, I want to say thank you for having me on the show again, guys. But that being said, it's great to be here as always. But it pains me to say because I hate Philadelphia. I hate the Eagles. They're a hated rival in almost every sport that I'm a fan of. But I got to give my hats off to Vic Fangio. He really did something and it was almost as if he took Steve Spagnuolo's playbook from Super Bowl 42 and applied it here. There was almost no exotic blitzes. There was no real crazy anything. It was all just front four pressure, and that was really something to hang his hat on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
go ahead, Johnson.
Yeah, no, I want to talk about the I guess the legacy effects of this, because now Patrick Mahomes has lost 3 Super Bowls by a combined over 50 points. And I think the comparisons between him and Brady are just
was this his second? Right? I thought this was his second loss.
I think this is his second loss.
Yeah, this was his second.
So you're saying he has 2 losses combined for about 50 points then?
Yes.
That's even worse then, because the way Tom Brady looked at it, there's in every single game that Tom Brady was in the Super Bowl with, he left at some point the fourth quarter when he got off that field, his team was in the lead. At every single point in the Super Bowl, he has 3 losses for a combined 15 points. And I think this loss, Patrick Mahomes will just never be able to catch him. I think Patrick Mahomes can match him at 7, but I don't think he'll ever match him. I don't think in the conversations for greatest player of all time, I think this will be I think this game is the nail in the coffin for that legacy.
I disagree. I disagreed. He's young enough. He's not even. I don't even think he's 30 years old yet.
He'll be 30 next season.
And even still, he's got how many more years I think ahead of him that he can. I think he's got plenty of time. And this ain't, to me. I never really. Everybody really gets into that whole Tom Brady debate, greatest of all time. I don't really do that. I kind of take it one guy at a time, one person. He's a good football player. He's got his own legacy. Screw Tom Brady. He's got his own legacy, and that's for a kid as young as he is to have as many championships as he does at this current. It's pretty. I'll take that.
And I guess I want to talk about. This isn't me taking a victory lap, but I do want to talk about how Kansas City was a 15-1 football team by the grace of God. They pretty much won 7 coin flip games this season. Whether it was the toe on the line or the pass interferences that should have been called, didn't get called, the last-minute fumbles, the blocked kicks, the missed field goals. They pretty much won 7 coin flips when it comes to 50-50 calls in games and calls that decided games this season. Would you guys disagree with that?
No, they had 12 one-possession wins this season, so you're not wrong to say it.
So let's call it 8 games, right? Let's say 8 games. They should have. It was a coin flip, 50-50 at the end.
Yeah,
they just so happened to be on the
Broncos had a game where they blocked a field goal at the end to win the game against Denver. We talked, you and I, Johnson, talked, wholeheartedly about what happened in that Bills game the couple weeks ago in the championship and what happened in that game.
I agree 100% with that, but I'm talking regular season though.
No, I'm just saying in general. Yeah, they had a lot of one possession close wins that could have gone either way.
Oh,
It could have been what they were the year prior, where they were like an 11 or 10 win team.
oh, I think this gives justice to all these teams thinking that Kansas City was a 15-win team that was masquerading as a team that should have had 10 or 11 wins. And that's the exact result we got in the Super Bowl. They were masquerading as a 15-win team. This was not a real 15-win team.
I mean, I kind of look at it like this. Yes, I agree. They're probably the worst 15-1 team to come out of the regular season in the history of the NFL. Not that I've checked, so I don't have any basis on that, but probably are.
I mean,
but at the end of the day, if they go through the Super Bowl, if they go through the playoffs and kick ass all the way through to the Super Bowl, it's a non-starter.
I think the most
thing is they didn't even kick ass in those games. They just scraped on by.
I think the most recent comp you have for a 15-1 team, I think, is that Panthers team that went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you know what? That Panthers team,
they were frauds also.
Better.
And while that game, they were also, obviously hindsight, you could say that. But if you look at how that game went too, Denver had one of the worst offenses in the league that season, had probably no right to win that Super Bowl alone. And if the reason Carolina lost that game is because they finally faced a defense that was like willing to finally get pressure on Cam Newton and company. And that's how that game, went to be. And that's why Denver won that Super Bowl. This game, and at least that game was like somewhat competitive for the most part. This game was just not competitive whatsoever. This game was done by the time the second quarter was over. Pretty much midway through the second quarter, this game was done.
I would say not midway through the second. I would say start of the third quarter, it was over.
I
think going into halftime, because we've seen so many crazy comebacks, especially the way the modern NFL is played, they had a chance.
I guess, but you could just sense by the language, like
body language
of the Chiefs, that the game was. Once Cooper DeJean got the pick six, I said to myself, well, crazier things have happened, but this game looks pretty chalk. They haven't even gotten into enemy territory. They've been on their side of the field the entire first half. Like I mentioned, they didn't get onto the Eagles' side of territory till the third quarter. That's how bad it was. They were really struggling offensively.
So I want you guys to take a guess with me right now, okay?
Okay.
If you saw this, what do you think the NFL titled the Patrick Mahomes highlights from this game?
I know what you're getting at.
So the title on this game, according to the official NFL YouTube, so this isn't a fan making it, this isn't sports media.
Yep.
It's Patrick Mahomes, highlights from Patrick Mahomes' free touchdown performance in the Super Bowl. And the highlights start in the third quarter when he's down 34-0.
Yep.
That is
either.
That is a real stat. It's a real video, this is what sucks about this, because Patrick Mahomes, not only is he a sore loser, he's a stat padder as well. When the game was done, he decided to throw a couple more touchdowns. 5 minutes left in the game, down 34 points.
Well, I mean,
now it looks like he has 22. He has 24 yards, 5 of 9.
What do you want him to just not play the rest of the game?
Well, I'm sorry. Do you really think you can come down from a 34-point deficit in 6 minutes?
No, but what do you want him to just?
I'll give you a handshake deal right now, Nick. If that ever happens next year in the regular season, I'll give you $100. And
I'm saying,
I'll roll it over each year for you. So
no, I understand. But I'm saying, do you want him to just not play the rest of the game?
I want you to be benched at that point. I think if Andy Reid had any sort of class,
getting benched.
Really, because Kenny Pickett had snaps in the Super Bowl. They bench your starters. So you play for next year too.
So what is he?
That's such a bad take.
It's not a bad take. You're down 34 points with 5 minutes left. You're not going to win the Super Bowl. You're done.
No, I disagree. There is no way you can insert Carson Wentz into this game at that point. There's no way.
You're done. There's no.
Yeah,
what are you playing for?
Yes, I agree.
Patrick Mahomes gets tackled and blows out his knees, and he misses all of next season too.
No, I agree that you're done, but you can't do that to Patrick Mahomes. You can't do that. That's absurd.
That just shows a loser's mentality if you're benching.
I'm so glad Xavier Worthy caught that touchdown, but
100%.
You know what? He's got off-season ACL surgery. So hey, pal, we'll see you in 2027. Is that what you really want?
I understand what you're getting at, but advocating to bench a player, despite whatever the deficit is.
I didn't say at halftime to bench him, but with 5 minutes left in the game.
No, it was 34-0 in the third quarter, and that's when they finally started scoring. At least.
Yeah.
They didn't score until 5 minutes left. They didn't. They were down 34 points.
They scored a touchdown before the third quarter ended.
Yes, but Nick, Patrick Mahomes got his other 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes of the game, where they're still down 34 points.
Yeah, but you can't bench your guy in the Super Bowl when you're
Why
losing.
is it bad optics?
The Giants. Hold on a second, Johnson. The Giants didn't even do that to Kerry Collins, and he went out there and threw 5 or 6 interceptions. Granted, it was probably to the greatest defense, at least that I've ever seen. But the Giants didn't even do that. You didn't see them
listen,
take
I know
out
it's
Kerry
college,
Collins,
but the most famous
Garrett.
benching of all time is Jalen Hurts and Tua.
Yeah, that was in a national
championship. You think Alabama
game.
wins that national championship game if he doesn't get benched?
That was just a weird anomaly game.
I don't know. That's yeah, I agree. That's a one-off.
It was nowhere near the deficit that this game was.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? Saban at least was able to say, hey, you know what? He was able to make adjustments. And, you know, having Patrick Mahomes just throw touchdowns 3 minutes left in the game, that's stat padding.
They put Carson Wentz in, the offense is going to get any type better.
No, but I'm not. The main argument I'm going to make here is because now that Patrick Mahomes had this stat padding, box score analysts, box score analysts 5-6 years now are going to look at this box score. They're not going to watch the game and say, "Oh yeah, it wasn't Patrick Mahomes' fault. Look, he had 250 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He threw 2 interceptions. No one's going to say that. He threw 2 picks. He got sacked 6 times.
You can sound clip this on ESPN and Fox Sports 1. It's 5 to 6 years now. You're going to have arguments about
They're not going to say that.
I guarantee it.
There's no way.
No, I don't think so.
Set a reminder for 2031 in your calendar right now.
I think your hatred for Mahomes is getting to you on this topic.
Hold on a second, Johnson. Let me see, because I've spent my entire day with mental patients. But are you trying to tell me that in 10 years or so, they're going to have an argument that Patrick Mahomes should have been benched?
No. I said 5 years from now. They're going to look.
Years from now, that they're going to look at the box score and the stat line from this game. They're going to say, you know what? It's not Patrick Mahomes' fault that they lost by 18 points. It's the offensive line's fault. It's the defense's fault. They're not going to play Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes deserves.
No, that's absurd. They're not going to. I don't even think they're going to talk about it. To be honest with you.
I think the only debate you could have, Johnson, is maybe that, the way the second half went for him, at least his stat line looked a little bit better than the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. That's probably it.
Yeah.
That's probably
it looked great.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
When you throw 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes of the game, anything's going to look good.
I think that's your only argument that you have. I think that's the only.
The guy has 7 picks. The guy has 7 picks in 5 Super Bowls now. Tom Brady, 10-6 for 10.
And Rob Gronkowski talked about this at the end of the game, and I think this is exactly the same scenario, because in that Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, the same thing happened where they weren't forcing a lot of blitzes. They were letting Mahomes run out of the pocket, forcing pressure with their regular 4-man rush, and they would make Mahomes like, okay, listen, like, let's look at him while he's running and let's see if we can force him to make a bad throw here and there, because by the time he kept getting hit, he was getting frustrated because he couldn't find any open receivers. So he was trying to force a pass here or there, and he was getting intercepted. And you saw that a bunch of times in this game and in that game as well. So,
but I also want to say this though: the way the football has changed in my entire lifetime, it has gone from where coaches used to not want you to get any interceptions, to the point of, if you don't have any interceptions, that means you're not taking any chances. So things have kind of changed. That whole interception debate and 7 interceptions in the Super Bowl, I think that's nonsense. Because honestly, I don't think coaches really generally care about that anymore.
I mean, let's be real.
Because they want you to take shots.
He made 5 Super Bowls in the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years of his career. So it's not like it's that skewed or anything. It's not like we're talking about the 1970s or 80s.
No,
I'm talking about modern times.
No, I agree. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the interception debate, to me, it's not. I don't think that really holds any water.
I mean,
but we're also talking about Patrick Mahomes like it's he's 40. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl in 10 years, and he's retiring. Like he's still got time here.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah,
another.
I know he
He's
has
got
time,
another
but the
decade
way
to
I
go.
look at it is, if you're Travis Kelce now, he's been putting his body through this for 3 years. Pretty much the only thing that's been getting him through the games the past couple of years
Mm,
is, okay, well, let's win a championship. Okay, let's go back to back. Okay, let's three-peat. Now
Yeah,
you didn't three-peat. You're 36. Your body's been
I,
failing you. You're having more injuries.
I wouldn't be
You
surprised
retire.
if he retires soon. I think he might. He
And
might
do you really?
retire because I think the only thing getting him going this season was going for that three-peat, and now that you
He
didn't
was.
get it, I don't know if he comes back next season. He might be done. I would not be
Me
surprised if he
personally,
retires this year.
I'm not gonna lie. Me personally, if I was Travis Kelsey, I would have retired last year. Three-peat or anything, that's irrelevant. I would have retired last year. Not because I'm on the top, but last year wasn't. You could tell that he wasn't at his best last year either. So
No, these last
And
two
the way I
seasons
look
have
at it,
been really bad
every
years for
single
him.
year where Patrick Mahomes has not had Tyreek Hill, he's regressed. That's just how it's been. He hasn't been the same player since that Pete Kelsey and Tyreek Hill on that team. He hasn't been the
well,
same.
Yeah,
well,
And I
yeah. I
don't
mean,
think he's getting
yeah.
that magic again.
well, yeah. You need that. Kansas City hasn't had that guy to take any heat off of Travis Kelsey. So I mean, it's a confluence of things, if you ask me.
So it's going to be. Do you think Patrick Mahomes can raise the floor around him,
Well, I mean,
like
it's
the other great
worthy. I
quarterbacks
think.
did,
Yes,
like
yes,
the
without
way
a doubt.
Aaron Rodgers did with, let's say, Jordy Nelson, the way that
I
Drew
think.
Brees did things in
I
New
think you're
Orleans.
starting to see that with
Yes, I
Xavier
do.
Worthy. I think he's the guy that could be that one for Mahomes. Because I mean, I get it. Most of his stats in this game came in garbage time when it was 34-0. But even for the rest of the regular season, he was pretty solid. In his first year in the league. So guys like him definitely could be beneficial to obviously having a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And you
He
saw
has
what
plenty
happened.
of time.
And you saw the year prior with Rasheed Rice, the same thing. If Rasheed Rice is isn't a dumbass and doesn't you know do his stupid crap off the field, and obviously he got injured
100%.
this season. But those are two guys that could easily help Mahomes get those numbers down in terms of interception to touchdown ratio. So he's still got a chance, but losing Kelsey definitely still hurts regardless. Even if he isn't the same as guy he used to be, just having him on the field, provides guys like those an opportunity to have a lot more receptions because he is the number one priority for defenses in terms of, trying to cover someone when they're facing the Chiefs. So that's where these next couple of weeks are going to be very interesting because obviously free agency doesn't start for another month. We don't know if he'll be on the team as of next month because I could see him very much well retiring at that point. Um, but again, I mean, it's, for the most part, the Chiefs are in a spot where, even going into the offseason, they're a team that we know that doesn't have much cap space. So it's not like they can just say, oh, let's just go into free agency, bring in this guy to replace a Kelsey like guy or sign a receiver to, add to the receiver room. They don't have that. They need to they're just going through the draft at this point because that's really all they can do. So if they want to have a chance at another Super Bowl, which let's face facts, they're going to be in the playoffs again next year regardless. It just depends on, will these next teams step up? Will Buffalo finally get over the monkey on their back and beat them? Can Baltimore get over the hump and finally do something? We'll see, what happens for the rest of the AFC as a whole. The West itself is becoming better. The Chargers got a good season. The Broncos could maybe be a dark horse next year. The Texans, who knows? I mean, they obviously had a bad year this year, but they were still a playoff team. You never know what happens with Stroud. Maybe he has a better junior campaign that he did his this past season. The Bengals, who knows with Joe Burrow and company where they go. There's just a lot of question marks because obviously everyone is gunning to beat this Chiefs team, but they haven't been able to do it these last couple of years in the AFC. And I think that's really where everyone is kind of getting tired with the Chiefs. They want to see a different team at this point represent the AFC because it's practically been the Chiefs since Patrick Mahomes got there in 2017, 2018. So that's realistically where a lot of the hatred comes from this team. They are originally the team that everyone was rooting for because they were trying to take down Tom Brady and company. Now they're the team. Now they've become the villain, and now everyone's trying to take down them.
Just to touch on Buffalo for a second, this is something I said to Brother Greg. Shout out to Buffalo. The city is like they can't just ever live in a moment. They're just waiting for something to happen. Since since I was 5 years old, and they went wide right. It's just been, oh well, it's going to happen again, and it's like, it's not that it's a loser mentality. I don't want to say it's a loser mentality, but it's just that they just seem to always wait for that next thing to happen, and it's almost like a karma juju type thing for the fan base. That's all I'll say about that.
Anything else you have, Johnson, before we move on? Anything else
Yeah,
from this
let's
game?
just move on. The only thing I'm going to say is the Eagles were I think the first dark horse in a couple of years to win the Super Bowl.
I mean, I think you knew going into the season when they signed Saquon that they were going to be someone to reckon with.
Yes, but I think we all had 4 to 5 teams for them. I think everyone
I
had
think everyone going into the year had
Chiefs, Baltimore, Buffalo definitely above the Eagles. Yes or
and
no?
Detroit.
And Detroit, that's 4 right
Yeah,
there. And then you
that's
could
four
make
right
the
there.
argument that perhaps maybe Cincinnati was ahead of them too.
Uh,
I know the way they did. I know. Listen, this is early season. I know Cincinnati didn't
no,
make the playoffs.
I know. If I had to rank it beginning of the year, I probably put the Eagles. They were definitely in the top 10 category.
Oh, 100%. But the
That's
clear
not,
dark
obviously
horse.
that's hindsight now. It's really easy to say that, but if I had going into the year, I would have put them. I would have probably put them at like 7.
I was gonna say 8. I was gonna say 8.
I like the Packers going into this year. Like I thought they did a lot of good things in the offseason, so I like them as a Super Bowl favorite. I'm trying to think of the other team that I liked going into the year. Obviously the Niners, I guess you could put in that category as well. We probably thought the Niners were going to be better this season, so
Absolutely.
I would take
I think we could agree about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
six or
what
seven
we could agree
teams
is
before the Eagles.
definitely the dark horse this year, and we don't see that very often.
Yeah,
To me, the Lions, if you ask me, the NFC was the Lions division
it was
conference
their
to
conference to
lose.
lose, and they lost.
And I don't want to make excuses, but injuries piled up since almost week one. I mean, and it's almost amazing that they finished as well as they did with all the injuries that they had. So I mean, that's something. But the Lions were a team that I was expecting to be there and snuff out the Chiefs.
And now they go into the offseason, obviously, without both of their coordinators. They lost both of them to the head coaching cycle. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they fare next season. They're obviously going to bring back a lot of this talent next year, but do those coordinators play a huge factor in terms of play calling? Because you never know sometimes, when you lose certain coordinators, your offense or defense starts to turn for the worst. And then you're back to square one trying to get back into the postseason. So,
I mean, maybe, but to me, and I hate equating it to this because high school football and professional football and college football in between there are three totally different beasts. But it's a culture thing, establishing that culture. You can kind of get away with, if you will, losing a coordinator or two. But the culture that Dan Quinn has established there, I think that's something that can take that team and continue to carry it on no matter who the coordinator is, if you ask me.
well, we'll have to see exactly what happens because Detroit could be very big players in this offseason. And I think one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to see, maybe if they do this or obviously another team does this, is we had some big NFL news happening prior to the Super Bowl this past Sunday. And most of the news came in terms of trade candidates. We saw Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. He requested a trade, so the former number 1 overall pick, he might be on the move this upcoming offseason. The Lions, I think, could be a team that certainly could use him to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson. We saw Cooper Kupp is going to be traded by the Los Angeles Rams, so they're going to find a trade partner. They also could be Matthew Stafford. That has also been a rumor as well. Maybe both of them get shipped off to somewhere. Deebo Samuel recently got granted another trade request by the 49ers. So last year we saw this debacle go down. He did not get that trade partner. They're going to try it again this upcoming season. So we'll see if he is on the move. And we also saw that the Jets officially more than likely will move on from Aaron Rodgers. So they're going to be going into another quarterback cycle this upcoming offseason, whether that becomes through the draft or through free agency. They will not have Aaron Rodgers, it looks like, going in to next season. Any of those, 4 players that you guys want to talk about briefly before we get to the final parts of our show?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to the Vikings to complete his Brett Favre
Favre arc.
saga,
I
and he'll retire after that.
I happen to disagree a little. I don't think that he'll wind up coming, but I think he makes a lot of sense to go to the Giants
Oh,
and have
please
the
no.
Giants. No, 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 no. Just hear me out for a second.
Okay.
Hear me out for a second.
I'm listening.
And you draft somebody. You
What's
then
yours?
take your pick of quarterback, and
What's yours?
you don't have to uh, force the kid out there to play. I mean, you could also make other moves, but Aaron Rodgers is the move that you make without having to give away draft picks at a time when when the Giants can't afford to give out draft picks like that. To me, it makes sense. You bring him in,
It does make
and then
sense.
you draft the guy you want, regardless of where it is. I still want the Giants to draft Travis Hunter and fall back a little bit to draft one of the other quarterbacks, Jackson Dart or
Oh,
McCord, Kyle
oh,
McCord from Syracuse. That's something like that
I
is
don't want to
something
do that.
that I would like.
I love Kyle McCord, but I don't want to do that.
I'm just saying because first off, this quarterback class, I know we'll get into this later on in the year, but just to touch on this for a second, this quarterback class is not great. It's great
No.
compared to it's good compared to what's in the class itself, but compared to other quarterback classes 2004, 1983, whichever other class you want to put in there,
No, it's
this class
terrible.
stinks. It's horrible. But which means that you bringing somebody in to be the starter and not having to force a Shador Sanders or a Cam Ward or whoever it is to play from day one is to me, and I've said this before, you know where I stand on this. I am very big on sitting the guy year one and letting him
I know.
learn regardless. I'm never going to change from this. So I really think bringing in a guy like him makes a hell of a lot of sense for the Giants.
All I'm gonna say is, before we go to the next topic, I think Rodgers becomes a Steeler. I know we'll have a free agency prediction in a couple weeks to break down where some of these players might go. I very much welcome to see the Steelers be in that team because they gave Russell Wilson a shot this past season. I'm sure they would give Aaron Rodgers a chance. Um, and for the Jets, the only way you can get a quarterback in the draft is either you're moving up into the top three, or you really like a guy like you mentioned, Jackson Dart, and you're willing to take him maybe in the second round because you can't take him in the first round. That would just be absolute travesty if you do that. Or maybe I've heard people, I've seen a couple Jets fans have maybe want Sam Darnold back. I guess he's going to be a hot commodity this upcoming free agency. Maybe you sign a Justin Fields. I don't know. They're just. It seems to me as if they're just kind of like punting away 2025. It looks like for the most part with this move, but I don't know. Maybe they have a better. I mean, listen, it's a whole new regime that they have with the GM and head coach. So maybe they know something that we don't know, and we'll see what they do. I guess in the next couple of weeks because you have 2 months of the draft. Next month is going to be free agency, so they have little bit of time before that happens. The final NFL news that we saw also happened today, as of this recording. Kellen Moore, we kind of expected this to happen going into the Super Bowl. We had heard the rumors about this, but Kellen Moore has now been
Yes.
officially named the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So he got to play, or I shouldn't say play, but he got to coach in the Super Bowl in New Orleans this past Sunday. He will now be the head coach of the Saints for the next couple of seasons. Kind of funny that he is going to be the head coach of a potential Derek Carr led team, considering that those two guys played back in, what was it, maybe 2008, 2009 in the Mountain West Conference at Boise State and Fresno State, their respective colleges. They're now head
Yes.
coach
Yes.
and QB for the current moment. We'll have to see if the Saints do move on from Derek Carr or not going into this offseason, if they try to go into free agency or in the draft, if possible. But that does conclude the coaching cycle for this year's NFL season. So we have all of our head coaching vacancies filled. And now we know the 32 head coaches going into next season trying to fulfill not only a playoff spot, but a potential Super Bowl championship if everything goes right. So yeah, that's pretty much some of the news that we had going into the Super Bowl. We also had NFL honors happen on the Thursday before the Super Bowl, a very eventful night in the NFL. As always, we saw a lot of big rewards happening that night with some of the big ones. Obviously, Josh Allen, he wins MVP. I have a little bit of a controversy with that one with Lamar Jackson and him. Saquon Barkley won Offensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year. Jaden Daniels wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jared Verse from the Rams wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. Joe Burrow wins Comeback Player of the Year. And Kevin O'Connell was the Coach of the Year this year in the NFL. And then obviously also the other big news was the Hall of Fame class that was announced. Obviously, Sean and I not very happy with the committee.
No, not at all.
Eli
Not at all.
did not make it this season.
All I'm going to say is they got it right. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't want to say they got it right. I've said from the very start, Eli is a Hall of Famer. I didn't think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Obviously, as a fan, I'm hoping that he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I think where they really missed was Adam Vinatieri should have been in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
but
that to me is a complete miss.
So here's the thing: since he didn't get in first ballot, there will never be a first ballot kicker now because he never got it.
Right? No, 100%
for Ray Guy, right, Sean? Like he didn't make it for like 20 years. I thought.
Oh, no? Ray Guy, another one, and Ray Guy, the greatest punter of all time.
Yeah,
same as Adam Vinatieri. He should have been in. It's insane that he lasted till 20 whatever.
I don't think Eli will get it in next year or the year after that as well, only because
Drew Brees is next year.
You have Drew Brees, so you don't think you're going to have those two going together. And I think it's going to keep on the can's going to get kicked down the road. And I think that's going to be the case.
I don't know. He'll get the way I look at it is I know he's going to go into the Hall of Fame because the way you look at it is when I think of a Hall of Famer is can you tell the history of the league without that guy? And you cannot tell the history of the NFL without Eli Manning.
I mean, sure, but can you tell the history of the league without David Tyree? Is he a Hall of Famer?
It's a different.
Well, Eli had to make the play.
It's a different argument. It's a different argument. Yes, David Tyree made the catch, but Eli did all the legwork. No pun intended. So I mean, it's a little weird. I also want to touch back real quick on the NFL honest thing. I didn't like the fact that Aaron Rodgers wasn't up for Comeback Player of the Year. I don't understand how he wasn't even a nominee for the award.
I think if you look at who was available there, Burrow coming off the injury, that made sense. Darnold, we knew Sam Darnold was going to be a candidate because of the year he had.
Yes, I agree. I agree with those two, but your man played 4 plays. He had 4 snaps. Like that is the very definition of the award. Whether he won it or not is irrelevant. How is he not a nominee?
I get it. I get it completely. I get it.
It's a stupid argument for a stupid award, but whatever.
Regardless, though, going back to the Hall of Fame, the nominees that did get in, we saw Jared Allen from the Vikings. I shouldn't say for the Vikings. He played for a couple more teams other than the Vikings, but I remember him mostly as a Viking. Sterling Sharp, Eric Allen, and Antonio Gates were the class of 2025. Some of the notable players next year that probably get in, I could see being first ballot Hall of Famers at least. Drew Brees, I think he should get in first ballot without question, as well as Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald doesn't get first ballot Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree.
There's something wrong with the committee. I don't think he'd be first ballot Hall of Famer, but Frank Gore probably should be in the Hall of Fame at some point, considering the longevity of his entire career and how many great rushing seasons he had. He should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree, Nick. I agree, but he's not going to because he's going to have the Eli treatment. Longevity, but he was never the top guy.
Well, I'm saying,
but I want to say.
Well, before you get to that, Sean, let me ask: do you think Eli at some point gets into the Hall, Johnson?
Yes, I think in like 5 years.
Okay, so you would say the same about Frank Gore.
Yeah, I think Frank Gore 5 years from now. I think in 2030
Frank Gore's first ballot. I'm saying that I think eventually he will get in, but it probably won't be first ballot Hall of Fame. I have to look at the voting from this year also to see who might make it after they got snubbed this year. But go ahead, Sean.
But here goes my argument with that. If Frank Gore goes into the Hall of Fame, Tiki Barber belongs in the Hall of Fame. And I do think Tiki Barber belongs in the Hall of Fame. But you got to put Tiki Barber in the Hall of Fame if you're putting Frank Gore in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, Frank Gore has 20,000 scrimmage yards. It's I know Tiki Barber has a
I mean,
lot, but
Tiki's not that far behind.
he's not. He's not. But he's
I think
got
Tiki
almost
played
100
less
touchdowns
years.
too.
Yes, he did play less years. I agree, and that's to me that shows even more that he played less years and did almost as much as Frank Gore did over a longer period of time.
It's harder for running backs because they really need a dominant 5 years stretch, which
Right,
Tiki does
100%.
have. But I think if he had one more season, he would have been. He would have been.
I'll agree. If Tiki didn't retire after 2007 and played on that Super Bowl team, this would be a non-starter. He probably would have gotten elected to the Hall of Fame last year.
I was really looking to see if they had like a voting process and see if they like Kyle had like the MLB.
I don't think they release him.
I don't think they do. And I was looking for it to see like how like close people were to get.
Well, I can tell you this: what the NFL has right is that they don't have sports writers saying that they're not putting guys in the Hall of Fame because they don't like the way that they were treated by a player in their locker room after post-game interviews or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's why.
Albert Bell.
That's why Ichiro didn't get that one guy to vote. Probably.
Yes, or why Albert Bell still isn't in Cooperstown. But whatever. I digress.
Was he the guy that punched someone at second base?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It could be that too.
Yes. It could be that, except the people who have gone on record saying that they're not voting for him for the Hall of Fame has nothing to do with him punching somebody in the face at second base. It has everything to do with, he wasn't approachable in the locker room after the game. Are you kidding me? That's terrible.
I think we all could agree that the Sports Hall of Fames, like, yes, while they are nice to go to and look at, all the like.
Basketball is the only sport that gets it right.
Right, because basketball is the one that gets it
NBA, college, international.
Right.
That's the only sport that gets it right.
If you ask me, the people who should be voting on the Hall of Fame, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think Lawrence Taylor said this at one point, it should be the guys who are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they should be
the ones voting on who goes into the Hall of Fame, not these writers and a bunch of random people off the street. It should be the guys in the Hall of Fame.
It's the NFL, right?
Me, yeah.
They have it's like mostly their media guys in terms of like even the commentators like do it too, right? Like Romo has a vote. I'm assuming like guys like Joe Buck. Joe Buck probably played a huge catalyst for Eric Allen getting in.
Who was I listening to the other day? I think it might have been Adam Schefter was the one who was talking about that he used to have a vote, and I think he stopped voting or something like that. But it's guys like that.
Yeah. So. That is the Hall of Fame 2025 class. We'll see who gets into the Hall of Fame next year going into 2026. But the last piece of business that we have here on the show tonight is kind of a little bit of an outlook for our teams going into next season. Let's face facts. Both of our teams, Sean and I being Giants fans, Johnson being a Patriots fans, we had a very bad year. 2024/25 was a very cruel football year for all of us. And then it ended with having to watch two teams that we don't really like having to play in the Super Bowl. So the football gods,
I expected
we're not kind.
Being fans of these two teams this year was almost like being the kid in grammar school that got his head shoved in the toilet every day. Like it was just atrocious.
And now we have a little bit of time to maybe look into what we're hoping for, maybe what we're trying to expect to see our teams do in the offseason. I don't know if you want to go first, Johnson, or if you want Sean or
I'll make it short and sweet. I kind of hope we're just middle of the pack next year because I think there's going to be a lot of great wide receivers in this draft. I think 2026 wide receivers, it's going to be even deeper class than this year. So if we're even mediocre, maybe we sneak into the playoffs, maybe we just miss it. And even we're picking somewhere around 15, 16, and we get one of these great wide receivers, I'm okay with it.
I'm curious. Do you want a receiver? Do you want a receiver in free agency or in the draft?
Bill couldn't draft a wide receiver, but Mike Vrabel has a very good eye for wide. He has a very good eye for wide receiver talent. So I'd rather have him pick someone else.
They did draft AJ Brown, even though they didn't give him a fair shot in Tennessee. They did draft AJ Brown at one point. Because I'm trying to think of the best receivers on the market. I think it's like T. Higgins. I'm gonna imagine is the top receiver.
That's fine, but I'd rather just draft someone than pay T. Higgins, and that's no disrespect towards T. Higgins, but
the Patriots are the biggest factor in the offseason, in my opinion, because not only do they have a top 5 pick, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. They have a lot. They have the most salary cap going into the offseason as well. So they're going to
Yeah,
be
I
big
think
time
I
players.
said what I think I said a couple weeks ago. What I want them to do. I think they should buy their defense and then draft their offense.
They
That's
need
what I
a
would
line
do.
help, that's for sure.
Yeah, you could build. You could buy your linemen. You can buy your defense, and then draft your offensive weapons
You've
because
got the
your offensive
quarterback.
weapons. Yeah, your
You
offensive
got the
weapons are the most
quarterback.
expensive things, and if you can get good rookies at replacement level value at the offense, and you have this stud offensive line and this great defensive line that could really pressure the opposing quarterback and keep your quarterback safe, that's how you win football games by
So
having
I'll
cheap
ask,
rookies.
I'll ask one question for you before I go to Sean for this. Is there one? Maybe I'll just ask in general. Who's one specific player you want the Patriots to either get in the draft or in free agency this offseason? There's one guy you're like, this
Travis
is the
Hunter.
number one guy.
Travis Hunter,
Travis
because we
Hunter.
both we could use cornerback
Hmm.
help
Absolutely.
or wide receiver help, and whatever he's better as, that's what they're going to tell him. He's not playing two ways in the NFL, and you have a 50-50 shot of getting an All Pro player at both sides of the ball. So someone's got to give.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you. What are you looking to see with the Giants in this offseason? I know it's going to be a very
Uh,
interesting offseason for us.
it's tough because part of me says, you know, can we can we sign a guy like an older guy like an Aaron Rodgers type and keep the seat warm for a year or two and go out there and trade up and get Arch? You know, part of me says that. The other part of me says, screw it. Go out and get Shador Sanders and still sign an older guy and bring in whatever. But the guy I have my eyes on is Travis Hunter. He is hands down the best player in the draft. Not only because he can play both sides of the ball, that's part of it, but he's just dynamic. If you ask me, I think personally, what I would do as a coach, he'd be one of my corners, and I'd spotlight him in certain situations on offense. Not kind of like what the Cowboys did with Deion Sanders back in the day, if you will. You know,
Yeah.
but other than that, like I said, this draft, besides not having, there is no Eli or Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck or whoever it is. There is no guy like that in that draft. So trading up, even if you're just talking about flipping spots with Tennessee Titans, just to make sure you get your guy, to me is stupid because you can ill afford in this kind of draft with the team that we have. You need every pick you can get, and we got a lot of holes. But I just think, I don't know. We need a. I don't want to say we need a culture change, but Dayball needs to change something because whatever's going on ain't working.
Well, I mean, we know that they're on thin ice. I think the problem with getting a free agency, I think there's a pro and con to getting a free agency like veteran quarterback because the pro is that maybe he puts you in a better spot to win now and at least get you in the playoff spot and extend Dable and Shane for another season if you want to keep them. The con of that is that well, they could just turn into what they were last season. Guys like Kirk Cousins, for
Right,
example. Kirk Cousins
right,
had a horrific
right.
end of the season. Aaron Rodgers for the first half of the season mostly was playing really bad football. Justin Fields is a question mark. Russell Wilson, another question mark. It's guys like Sam Darnold, the biggest question mark in the entire offseason in terms of quarterback, because
Right,
who
right.
exactly are you getting? You're going to get the guy from Minnesota, or are you going to get the guy that we kind of saw come out of the draft for the Jets, where he was seeing ghosts and stuff like that. So I think there's all pros and cons and stuff like that. I think because of them being on such a short leash that they have to get a quarterback in this draft, and they need that quarterback to pan out. Because at least if the quarterback pans out, then you might be saying to yourself, okay, you know what? Yes, we didn't make the playoffs this season, but we have that quarterback in place at least. Like you're going to see that eventually with New England because yes, Gerard Mayo got fired, but they know that they have the quarterback in place for Drake May. Now you bring in a more established guy like Mike Vrabel. He can, he can help and develop Drake May and company to be back to the old Patriots that we saw for plus 2 decades. For the Giants, they need that quarterback in place to even give them any type of hope because you at least have that number one wide receiver. Malik Neighbors is a stud. any quarterback will want to play with him. And because you could have someone reliable to throw the football with. It extended Eli Manning's career for a majority because Eli was probably done up until Odell Beckham got drafted. And Odell Beckham extended his career for 3 or 4 years, however many it was. So for me, I think if they weren't able to get Shador in the draft, which I think is more likely than people expect. I think everyone's expecting both the top two teams to draft quarterback. And unless someone like the Titans trades out, I don't necessarily see the first two picks being quarterback. Maybe one of them
I don't think.
Maybe one of them goes, but I don't see both of them being quarterbacks unless there's
I
a
don't know.
trade.
I don't. If you ask me, I really don't see the Titans trading out. I see it.
They've explored it, but I think they're. I think they're also in a spot where they have to take a quarterback too. I don't know if they're going to go keep Will Levis.
They are, but to me, it comes to a value thing. Who?
Because their coach is also on thin ice too. He had one season.
No,
and it was really bad.
No, I agree, but the way I look at it is one of these quarterbacks worth trading up for? You know, and if you're Tennessee, is it worth as a coach trading out of that spot and missing out of what's his name, Abdul Carter?
Yeah,
is that his name?
Yeah, Abdul Carter.
Is it worth missing? Is it worth missing out on Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter?
But in fairness,
to me, they're 1 and 2 in the draft, if you ask me.
But in fairness, if you were to trade out to, let's say, a team like Vegas who needs a quarterback at 6, you could go fall down to 6, and then you could potentially trade right back up with a team like maybe, I don't know, Jacksonville at 5. Like maybe you just move up an extra pick and you can get Abdul. I don't know. Not necessarily. You're not necessarily guaranteed to get them. But
right.
I think that I don't know. Like I said, the draft's weird because the first two teams could go quarterback. They might not go quarterback. You don't know. We don't necessarily know exactly what they need to do because Tennessee has Will Levis. What's the situation with him? The Browns, we know, have Deshaun Watson, and he's now out for the whole season. So now exactly what are you doing pretty much at the quarterback spot this year? Are you just going to sign a veteran gap for one season, or are you just going to say screw it, let's just draft a quarterback and go from there? And now with the Jets, they're going to probably be a factor in this draft as well because they're getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, so they're going to try to trade up as much as they possibly can. So I don't necessarily know.
To me, with the Jets, I don't think the value is there because
it's not
trading up for who? Jackson Dart. That's not.
We'll get him at 7 if they really want him that badly.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Trading up to get a guy who's going to be there anyway. Trading up to get a guy who, in my opinion, is going to be there in the second round is that's where GMs get fired. If you ask me,
I think for me for what I would want, I would prefer them to sign Shador. I'm still open to signing the veteran quarterback. If it's Jameis Winston, I don't really care. I'll take a year of Jameis. He's fine. Yes, he does throw interceptions, but he's a locker room guy that you would want to have. So I would be okay with him.
I agree.
Russell Wilson, I wouldn't mind him on a 1-year deal as a backup. That's a good mentor for a young quarterback.
Yes.
I just want them to get Shador or Cam. I don't care who it is. I prefer Shador, I guess, but I don't really.
I want Shador.
I don't care who it is out of the two of them. It really just comes down to we need to get a quarterback. We need to get a somewhat of a backup to have because you can't be rolling guys like Tommy DeVito. Drew Lock was, I guess, okay, but he kind of cost us the number 1 pick as it was. So
yes,
that's also
did. That was a game I would have started Tommy DeVito just from the point of I don't want to mess around with the first overall.
I'll tell you right now, Sean. I think if Tommy DeVito started the game against the Colts, he probably would have done the exact same thing because Colts defense was that bad.
Yeah, maybe not, but you can always play Monday morning quarterback later on afterwards.
So that would be who I would want from the draft. There is a couple of free agents that I would like to see them possibly get. It all depends on their cap space because right now they have around like 40 mil in cap space. So I don't necessarily see them like giving it to one specific player. They're probably going to try to nickel and diamond and try to sign as many possible guys as they possibly can. I saw this idea float around. I probably wouldn't hate it if he's a number 2 guy for us. I wouldn't mind them getting a Stephon Diggs as a cheap option to be their number 2
Yeah,
wide
no, I
receiver.
wouldn't
Because
hate.
why not? He has
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't
history with
hate that.
Campbell. You might as well just give him a chance. It's not like you're
Yeah, I
asking to be
wouldn't.
the number 1 wide receiver on your team. You have that guy already. He's a perfect number
Yeah, I
2.
wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate that at all.
And then you can
I
focus
definitely
on
wouldn't hate that.
getting, because there's, in my opinion, there's a lot of O line help. Like there's a lot of offensive line in this draft in the first 2 rounds, and you could say the same thing about secondary in this draft. There's a lot of players in this
Yes,
draft,
yes,
and that's what coincidentally that's what the Patriots need. That's what we need. So it's like all 3 of us are in the same spot where we're okay with our team making a draft day decision on O line or secondary help in free agency, as long as we, in the offseason, either sign a receiver or if we sign maybe some offensive line or defensive line help. Like just something like
yeah,
that. I think we're all like kind of in the same boat. The only difference is one of us
I
has a
agree.
quarterback, the other 2 are looking for that quarterback.
Right,
So
right, right.
that's really what it comes
The,
down
the,
to.
the one thing to me that I wish happened this offseason, I really wish they fired Shane Bowen. You ask
Ugh.
me, he does not play the right his defensive scheme. Granted, he runs a 3-4 defense, and we're pretty much set up for a 3-4 defense. But his scheme overall does not play to the strengths of our defense.
Well, like I said, everyone's something nice for the Giants, so it doesn't really matter. You gotta just roll the next season and see what goes on with the team. Because they all probably just get fired if we have another like 3-win year, and then it's
Oh
all
yeah,
it's a moot point at this rate. So that's how it's gonna go. But yeah, this is the final podcast of the 2024-2025 season. And the next time we'll be talking on the podcast for the NFL will probably be in about a month's time. Because as I mentioned earlier, the free agency period begins around March 12th. So probably the next time we get on the show, we'll be discussing where top tier free agents and maybe even trade candidates that I mentioned earlier, where they will go in free agency. And then, of course, we know what will be happening in 2 months. That will be the NFL draft. I'm sure Sean, as always, will be back with us.
yes,
Our
yes,
very own,
definitely,
as he calls it, Mel Kiper, will be back with us
yes,
to discuss
yes,
what will go down in this upcoming NFL draft. Probably the most unpredictable NFL draft we've had in recent memory. And we'll try and see how many correct picks we could possibly get in our mock draft for this season. I believe our 3rd annual mock draft that we've done here on the show.
yes, it is, yes, it is.
So it should be a fun time. And but yeah, that does wrap up the NFL season. And Johnson, for you and I, it's time for basketball. We got some NBA basketball as well as some college basketball to discuss for the next couple of weeks until we get back into the NFL around March and April time. So
Yep, in that next week, the week after that, and the week after that.
yep. So any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap this one up?
You can just bring us home, unless Sean has anything else to say.
No, just that as always, we're gearing up towards what is always and has been since I was about 8, my favorite part of the NFL season, free agency and the draft and all that. But I'll say this, and it pains me to say this, as even though don't identify anymore as an alumnus of St. Francis College, Appalachian State. I'm actually pulling for St. John's. I can't believe I'm saying this. It hurts, but
I don't think I'm going to
it'll
allow
be...
you on the bandwagon. I'm going to have to. The council's going to have to decide that.
All right, well then kiss my ass.
The council will get back to you about that.
I think you have to give Johnson and I some time. We haven't really experienced any like good basketball like this for pretty much ever. So we're kind of like viewing applications to jump on the bandwagon right now.
I just want to say this, and I'm whatever. I'm not trying to mush. I'm not trying to whatever. It's a great story. It's a great story, and especially around a time where most of the professional sports here has been putrid for the last whatever. So having something like this, I mean, not that New York City is known as a very big college town, but at least it's a start.
Like I said, it's the best thing going. This and the Knicks have been good for the most part this season, so it's like having those two at least is somewhat healing the city. I mean, as much as the Mets had a great October, so I mean, I'm sure that they'll be the talk of the town come April. I don't even want to, venture to think about what the season's going to come up for the Yankees, but that's for a couple more months in April or late March, early April. So that's also coming up for us here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. So definitely tune in and follow along the entirety of that season. But yeah, let's wrap this one up, Johnson, with our final NFL podcast of the 2024-25 season. Like I mentioned, a really bad sports year continues, and I'm hoping it doesn't prolong into 2025 the rest of the way, because it's been already a rough 2025 year for myself. So we'll have to see what happens. But nonetheless, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The Philadelphia Eagles have won their second Super Bowl ring as of this past Sunday, defeating the Kansas City Chiefs and ending their chance of a three-peat. We'll have to see if the Eagles can go back-to-back this upcoming next season. They'll have a very good chance to do so with the roster they already have at hand. But as I mentioned, with NFL free agency in a month, we'll have to see if the rest of the 30 teams in the NFL can get to the later stages of the NFL season and can contend with the Eagles and Chiefs to try to get a Lombardi trophy. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson and our special guest host Sean Mulligan for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.